For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high-fiver? I kind of like the high-five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
When you Google Rounders, apart from the 1998 Matt Damon film of the same name, it describes it as an old English game that never became a seriously competitive sport, although it is probably an ancestor of baseball. And I'm not sure our guest in this episode might agree with that. I'm Michael.
And I'm John, and this is Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy, the podcast where we focus on the key people behind the scenes who make the British sporting world tick. So as we enter another year with health, fitness and well-being being top of many people's agendas, we thought we'd find out more about a traditional sport that's very much still around today.
Hi, I'm Natalie Justice-Dearn, and I'm Chief Executive of Rounders England.
Natalie, fantastic to have you on Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy. Tell us a bit about Rounders England then, the size, the scope of your organisation and its main functions and roles.
Yeah, so we're really a kind of a traditional national governing body. As a governing body, it's been around, well, not as long as the game, but as a governing body, it was started off like a lot of traditional sports bodies, with volunteers at first, and then over kind of the last few decades, it has grown. I took over 2 years ago with, just a real interest in what the opportunities are for Rounders. As a governing body, I would say we kind of punch above our weight. I think people, a lot of the time, what we hear a lot of is, I didn't realise Rounders was a governing body. So it's always a good opportunity to start a conversation when you hear that. And like I said, we always punch above our weight, I believe, because people think once they get to know what we do, they think there's a far bigger engine behind the size of us. So as a team, we're only around about a team of 10. And in terms of the Rounders playing community, 10,000 people playing regularly, adults playing in the community. So around about 200 odd leagues up and down the country. I didn't know any of that before I started. I think the biggest thing that I see as a difference to a lot of other sports I've worked with is everybody has a real, well, not everybody, I can't say everybody, that'd be wrong with me, but 99% of people that you speak to have a real positive affinity with the sport, which is a massive opportunity for us as we embark on kind of growth and engagement further. Because
it's a sport that I think, like you said there, 99% of us have played at school. But is your role then to ensure that those of us that did it in PE or games lessons at school actually realise there's a structure, there's a professionalism to the organisation, that this is something they can carry on pursuing in the same way that people will go and play squash once a week or go to their badminton hour? Yeah, I'd say so. And it's a mixture. I think we do work within the education system as well. We've kind of changed our approach in the last couple of years around providing resources for teachers and what have you, rather than just doing competitions in schools for those that already play, trying to bring about that growth and ensure that it maintains and continues being played at school. But again,
at different levels, rather than it just be something that they play. Like I remember at school in the summer when the grass has been cut, it's actually a structured program with school as well. And absolutely that, as you say, it's around letting people know that there are opportunities to play, in their local community. It's easy to start a Rounders club if you want to, and supporting those people that do. But I think alongside that, it's using the accessibility of the sport, to tackle some of those inequalities that we've got, to really open up probably sport and physical activity to an audience that maybe are put off by the more traditional sports. So I think that it's twofold what our role is really.
We'll talk about you and your roles previously at triathlon and cycling, but those sports to me are very cross-generational, cross-gender, and I think Rounders is as well, that actually anybody can play it. And isn't that a wonderful thing when we're all trying to get more fit and more healthy, that actually we could all come together and play this game?
Yeah, we've just launched a new strategy. Again, that's one of the USPs of it. It can be played and is played by different generations, genders. There's no, you can play it in whatever format you want to play it in. Obviously, what we do, we have structure, we have rules, and we have competitions, but that's not the only way you can play. But even through our leagues and what have you, a lot of them are mixed gender leagues, and you don't get that as much now in a team sport anyway. So that is definitely one of the most unique things. We have up in a few areas of the country, but definitely around Yorkshire, we've got some teams that are a lot of Muslim women and South Asian women, and you've got every generation there. You've got the young girls playing with the grandparents, the grandmas, and it's amazing that that's something they can do together as a family. So it's definitely, as you say, that's a big opportunity for us.
Why does it then all grind to a halt after school? And what's your role to try and make sure that actually moving forward that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I think it's along the same lines as a lot of other sports. You do have a massive dropout, but that 11 and that 16, and I think Rounders definitely does have that, and I think part of it is because people, maybe as a national governing body, one of the things that we need to work harder on is raising the profile of that. It's a bit chicken and egg. We're a small organisation with not loads of resources, so it's finding those avenues where we can start to build that reach and start to build that profile. But you still do get even people that then played at school. A lot of our leagues and teams, they're people that are kind of coming back to sport and physical activity, and it's how we do bridge that gap in between. We've gone to British universities to try and become a university accredited sport, because I think that is one of the areas where we can really grow and bridge that gap a little bit, just to start growing, like you say, rather than grinding to a halt when people do finish school and just going away with this nice rosy thought about what Rounders is. I
imagine the students will love a game of Rounders at university. I think it's a terrific idea. The 10-year strategic vision that you mentioned, Rounders Reconnected, launched early November 2021. We've spoken a lot about grassroots, mass participation, school sport, and school sport's something we want to talk to you about. But you also, as an organisation, are responsible for England squads. So what can you tell us about the kind of international game of Rounders? Where are England in terms of the World Cup of Rounders, if such a thing exists?
Yeah, it's an area of opportunity. We've always had England squads, women's squads. It's only ever been England women's squads, which again is quite unique in itself. And it is very amateur. It's not an area that we fund massively because we don't have loads of money. We can't get government funding to do that. So a lot of the players, we do have trials and we have pathways, but they fund themselves. And we use it at the moment as a bit of a showcase. So we have the England squads that maybe showcase at festivals up and down the country during the summer. And that is mainly because internationally, the Rounders is played internationally in pockets, but it's trying to connect that. There's no international federation. So that's something that we want to work towards or start to put those feelers out, in other areas, maybe through the Commonwealth and what have you, to see where there's round has been played, it's natural. It's been played in expat communities in Dubai, Pakistan, India. We found out the other day, we spoke to somebody from Australia. It's played quite big in Australia. So it's how we start to make those connections to build on that. Because at the moment, we only have one fixture that's kind of seen as the biggest fixture, and that's against Wales. There has been, that's every year, there has been matches against Isle of Man, Ireland, Scotland in the past. So we're trying to kind of bring those about again. But global, that kind of international side of it is something that is a part of our vision over the next 10 years. And we use an ambition of being a Commonwealth Games ready sport by 2032. And we carefully use the wording of being Commonwealth Games ready. We are not saying we will be in the Commonwealth Games by then, but it gives us that drive and ambition to kind of work towards that.
Commonwealth Games obviously is coming to Birmingham in 2022. Does that then represent a potential opportunity for you? Could we see some kind of festival of rounders, whilst, as you say, it's not going to be on the programme? Is it something you can tap into in the build-up or as part of the legacy?
Yeah, it's funny because as a team, that's what we're talking about, is actually what we're starting to look at is exactly that. How many people can we find, that maybe live in and around Birmingham, maybe through the universities, that can represent their countries at a mini festival? We get the England squad there, and we might get a rep squad through, some Australian students or, other Commonwealth countries, or however works. But that is definitely an opportunity, because Birmingham, we've got quite a lot that goes on in Birmingham. It's definitely a focus area for us, in the future.
Can you play indoors?
Yes. So that's the other thing. People think that rounders finishes in summer, when the clocks turn back. They don't. It's really grown indoors over the last few years, and it's a great game. I had no idea. I went before COVID hit. Obviously, we didn't play indoors last year, but in 2019, I went along to an indoor league, and I was like, wow, this is brilliant, because it's so fast and bounces off the walls, and it's a great game to be playing indoors as well, and again, just keeps people connected and together and active throughout the winter. Lots
of focus at the moment, and rightly so, about women's sport, Natalie. And I wonder whether, when you were talking about how England played Wales and we've got people playing in Australia, but we don't have an international federation, I was thinking, this is like rugby league, effectively. I mean, I'm not a huge follower of rugby league, but that's how I see it. It's that it's in pockets in this part of the country, in this country, and then it is played around the world. And that's obviously very much a man's game. And I wonder, do you think there's an opportunity for a sponsor, and feel free to plug it here, but is there an opportunity to say, look, this is another women's sport, a bit like netball, where actually, if we had some funding and we had some backing and we had some organisation that you guys could lead, this could be really beneficial for the women in this country? Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, that whole commercial side is something that over the next it's got to be a focus for us, like it is. We're aware that the commercial sector's is quite tricky at the moment and has been, but I think exactly what you said, the opportunity that Rounders has in growth, in engagement, and what would be fantastic is to have a partner to work with that can go on that journey with us. And I think that often, especially in the women's in women's sport world, that is often the case. It's about a partner, finding the right partner that wants to go on that growth journey, rather than just, the sponsor being kind of dropped in. There's an opportunity to make change. There's an opportunity to be part of that journey, right? The way where we're at now. So, absolutely. And that is, something that we are hopefully in the next few years, we'll be able to kind of work with some people, because we can't at the moment as an organisation meet the demand, and that's a great position to be in, but also quite frustrating. For me, I just want people to play. I just want people to get active and play sport, and obviously I want that through Rounders. And we've got a lot of people that want to work with us and partners that want to work with us on projects, and we just can't meet that demand because of resource. So yeah, hopefully we're able to, once we, a bit more growth and engagement, and we're able to kind of track some some partners to work with us on that journey. Definitely.
Well, obviously we will offer you all our support moving forward. And if you do have that Commonwealth Festival of Rounders, we'd like to be your commentators for it, actually.
Okay.
This is Anything But Footy. It's Great British Bosses. And we're with Natalie Justice-Dearn, the CEO of Rounders England. I mentioned school sport. Rounders ranks 5th in the most played team sports at school. You, together with other CEOs, wrote a letter to the Secretary of State in the summer about school sport. What did you say in that letter, and how much of a concern is it that PE is slipping down the agenda when we all know, and it's a common sense approach, that it is part of a big answer, a big solution to a big problem in this country?
Yeah, I think, and I have, it's a strange one really, and I have a lot of personal frustration also, kind of just don't understand it, why within the education system, there's evidence to prove, there's so much evidence out there that says now, staying fit and active helps, your academic side and all of the above, and the difference it makes on communities, families and everything else. And I think, the challenge we've got is obviously due to changes, cuts, everything else. Sport is in some ways at the moment, because it's not a league tabled subject, it's quite an easy one for schools to drop down the list of importance, and that's a real challenge. And don't get me wrong, I don't blame head teachers or teachers for that, because of the challenge, the pressure that they're under. So our role as a sector is to really try and make sure that doesn't happen, and to continue to lobby, and that's the absolute key. And Rounders plays, it does play a big part in that. But like I said, I think there's other angles to that as well. Is how do we lobby to get it, regulated through, league tables, because that seems to be almost like the golden ticket that's going to make the difference. But that's going to take some time to do that. But it's just around that lobbying to make sure that about the 60 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day that children, young people need, or that people need, and raising awareness of all those kind of things. How can we, the other part of it was around extending schools. So how can we support schools to open their facilities to their local community? And there's, again, that takes kind of widespread sector support to do those kind of things. But it's just really concerning. And when I sit in those meetings, blimey, when I was growing up, it was just a given that you're active, wasn't it? And that you walked to school or ran to school, or went on your bike. And I've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and luckily they do enjoy being active. But it's not every kid, is it? And that's a real worry, that it's not just second nature to them.
It's obviously a huge issue. Infrastructure is part of it, as we know. Desire of wanting to do it is another big part of it. What was reaction then from government when you wrote that letter?
I think we've just done the second iteration of it, and I think it's only just going through now. The Youth Sport Trust are leading on that. But obviously there's positive signs. You just don't know. There is support from within the DFE. There absolutely is. But it's just trying to, in some ways, combine, get all the ducks in a row, and getting, especially your Department for Education, your Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and everybody kind of singing from the same song sheet with some consistency. And that's what we're trying to do, is kind of bring about some of that. So there has been, from the last pledge a couple of years ago, there's been positive steps forward, and what have you. And there are, there is ears kind of listening to it now, but it's how we just keep doing that. And especially as we recover from COVID, the impact there and the role that sport and physical activities can play, it's even more important.
So let's talk about you, Natalie. How do you become CEO of Rounders England? How does that work? What was your journey?
I have no idea. No, I was. I count myself as very lucky. I started working in football, actually. So back in 1999, I was lucky that I was a football coach, and when I finished university, I started coaching. And the guy that I was coaching for worked with the local county FA, and he, out of his own pocket, gave me a job coaching and building up a girls' football program. And back in 99, 2000, that was like I remember going into schools and it being like, wow, you know, this girl's talking about football. We don't do it. And it was really challenging, but a great time to be involved in that. So I did 12 years working in football and football development, not just on girls and women's football, although that was a big passion of mine. But through to working and managing the football development programme for Birmingham FA. And I, going through that, I loved working in football because I've played football all my life. I always kind of say, I think one of my drivers was I was a girl in the 80s that just started playing football for, I've no idea, just locally. I didn't come from a football family. And I actually played for Preston North End boys team when I was like 9 or 10. And I used to get on my bike and go across town and play football. And then I was approaching the age where I wasn't allowed anymore. But I was in my final year of primary school, and I used to have to, you had boys' games and girls' games then. And the boys played football and the girls played this game called skittleball, which is a bit like netball. I just didn't like it. And I used to stand and watch the lads playing football. So my parents wrote in to school and asked if I can play football in game time again. And they got summoned in, and I remember sitting at the back of the room where they got a roasting off the head teacher that it was disgusting that they were encouraging their daughter to play football. And I felt really guilty that my mum and dad were getting told off by my teacher, but also thinking, no, this ain't right, you know. So I think that subconsciously has always kind of driven me in participation and opportunities of sport. And again, when I was working in football, I realised that it was around, yes, I loved football, but it was around just open up opportunities generally in sport. And then so I moved on to British Cycling. I was a regional manager there, and whilst I was there, British Cycling were lucky enough to get some funding to start a women's cycling programme, and I applied for the job to lead that. And effectively we had a blank piece of paper with some money to spend, and it was called a National Women's Cycling Network was the project title, and that's where Breeze was born, you know, the women's program in Breeze. And I was lucky enough to do that for 5 years, and I absolutely loved it, you know, and still love it. I still class it as something that I'm really passionate about, and I love watching the journey of Breeze as it's grown and what have you. And then from there I moved on to British Triathlon as the director of development there. So Go Tri was one of my in my remit and role, and and we had a great time with Go Tri as well, because again I was lucky to be at a time when we could bring about some change and change the program. So I think it's always been about participation and bringing about change and opening up accessibility to sport, and I think that's really what led me to Rounders. And I wasn't looking, but it kind of just came about, and applied for the job, and my first CEO role. So it's been a bit of a baptism of fire, especially through COVID. But again, I could shout from the rooftops the opportunity that Rounders has. And for me, somebody that is driven by that kind of bringing about that change and open up sports, it's just a great job to be involved. It's a great organisation to be involved in, and great sport to be involved in.
Well, speaking to you today, I can see why you got the job. Your passion absolutely shines through. That legacy, though, that you've left, Natalie, from football to cycling to triathlon, that is a heck of a legacy.
Yeah, no, but I just feel really lucky. I think, you know, that it's, I love what I do. And it's, you know, I love working with people. I love meeting the people that you work with. And, you know, when I talk about football, I'm still friendly with a lot of the people that I worked with in football. And it was just the other day with Breeze, and one of the champions, you know, the Breeze, which were the ride leaders, and I still stay in contact with some of those volunteers that we brought about then. And I just saw something on Facebook that she's led 500 rides for Breeze, and she's this 80-year-old woman who's just amazing. That's why it's great. You know, you work with passionate people, you can't help but be passionate about what you do, can you?
Did you always want to be a CEO, or did that kind of come about, if you like, by accident as opposed to design?
I think by accident. When I was at school, and even going to university, the only path really was a PE teacher. That was the one that was the sport thing that was open to me at that time. And when I was at uni, I just didn't want to do that. And then I got into this thing called sports development, and I was like, oh, this is quite good. That sounds right up my street. And then I think as over the last probably 5 years or so, I've thought, oh, I'd love to really do that. And obviously working with Rounders, it's a great organisation to have that, to have the impact, but also to learn, as we go along. And the last few years, I think I've always thought, oh, I'd love to, I'd like to be a CEO and just to kind of, lead an organisation through, through maybe some of the things that we need to do, and also that to be able to bring about some of the opportunities that I see when you're talking about sport or physical activity or doing things a little bit differently.
And you mentioned obviously challenges and challenges around COVID, but just is it a different mindset I know you're a non-profit making organisation, but you do still need to bring the pennies in to run, and that brings different pressures in itself, I presume. Yeah,
I don't think you can ever really know what the change is when you go into like a leadership role, like a CEO. And I think it's a bit of an overwhelming sense of responsibility. That's kind of the change that I saw was a lot of the role and the things I'm doing and bringing about opportunity, that's similar to especially a director role in another organisation. And but that overwhelming sense of responsibility, especially in COVID, something like that, where there's people, it's lives and jobs and people are looking to you to go, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, just kind of flying by the seat of my pants a little bit. We've got, at the moment, and I think that was the big change and the pressure that brings. But hey, I mean, I'll keep saying I'm lucky. I've got a brilliant board, and I think as a first CEO, I've got a great chair, really supportive board, and that is so important. And that is one of the things, to be fair, when I was approached about this role that I knew would be important, and I'd looked at the people that were on the board and knew that actually that was the right kind of move, really, because I think that is really important, especially when I'm a first time chief executive.
You mentioned hundreds of clubs in the country. How do I find one?
You can go on our website and find it on there, but we use a lot of it is around social media for us and our clubs, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram mainly. So I always urge people to follow us on those, because that's where we're most active, and we often put call outs and shout outs for local leagues and local clubs looking for players, or the other way around. And do you participate? Is there a local club that you play with? No, it's quite funny. Not at the moment. I do play. I play informally, so I play with friends, and we play when we go camping. We go camping quite a lot in the summer with my boys. And there is a local league near me that I've been to see. But with a 4 and 6 year old at the moment, and working full time, my sporting days have kind of taken a bit of a back seat wrongly. They keep me active enough, but I do love it. I do love it. And when you play, favourite position? Is it backstop? Is it bowler? I always love first post. I love being on first post. First post, and I love batting. I am not very good at throwing. My friends found that hilarious, that I was going to work for Rounders when the one thing that I'm pretty bad at is throwing. I'm all right catching and batting. So anything that's not out deep fielding, that is not for me at all.
And let's just look to the future before we wrap up. Short-term, mid-term, long-term goals for Rounders England. You mentioned obviously being a kind of recognised Commonwealth Games sport. Is that the big ambition, or do you look beyond that even in the long term? Yeah, the long-term kind of ambitions, we've got 4 main ambitions, and one of them is around 1 million more people playing Rounders in the next 10 years. And the other one is around 100,000 strong membership. Because we are a membership organisation, and the Commonwealth Games ready side of things, and also developing, which is probably more medium term, developing a national league structure, because we've got leagues and clubs and teams up and down the country, as I said, but there's no national league structure for them to be part of. So that is that's a big part of it as well, is that whole competitive side and providing that structure for that. But it's mainly, it's around
sustaining the organisation and getting ourselves, in a strong position in our foundations, and it's around growth, engaging our rounders community and be relevant to the rounders community of the people that are playing out there. And like I said, developing our talent pathway in England squads in order to hopefully be Commonwealth Games ready in 10 years. And everything in between all of that, really, working with, the education sector and the university stuff. So it's really exciting. It really is. And like you said earlier, it'd be great for us to find some partners that can go on that journey with us as well.
Well, it's fantastic to have a guest on Great British Bosses from a sport that we've actually both played, because we've been speaking recently with British curling, and we've not been on the ice. I've never done a triathlon, so it is fantastic to have a sport on Great British Bosses that I wouldn't say I've excelled at, but at least I've given it a go.
No, great. I think that's the thing. I always say, if we had £1 for everybody that says, "Oh, I love rounders," or "I really enjoyed it," then we wouldn't need any commercial partners. We'd probably be richer than the FA.
Natalie Justice-Dearn, CEO of Rounders England, thank you so much for your time for Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy.
No, thank you.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.